Hello! The new cycle of Stygian Onslaught dropped this morning, so just like usual, I will try to beat the fairest difficulty with the least amount of 5-star units I can and give some tips on the way. And as always, none of the 5-star units have constellations, no one is using 5-star weapons, and the Battle Pass weapons are not allowed. So without further ado, let's get going right away. We start with the C0R0, and once again we can cheese it with Jean. All you need for this is Amber, which everyone has and she doesn't even need to be built, and a level 85 or higher Jean, which also doesn't need to be built. We start by doing 3 charge attacks on Amber, then use her burst, and here you want to hold Jean's skill while looking at the ground. If done correctly, the boss will receive full damage, and by pushing him back up and quickly flicking the mouse down, you should be able to deal a second instance of fall damage, dealing over half of its health. Then all you need to do is wait for the boss to fly again and do this a second time. But if you don't want to cheese the boss and fight him normally, you will need 2 things. First, you need a way to destroy the shield decently fast, so a way to deal power damage while he is flying, or electro damage, but it will be slower. And then, because he has very high resistances, you will need either some resistance shred or Nemo DPS. Obviously, Venti and Durin are both very good characters here, but other than that, Overload with Shivers should also work pretty well, as long as you have a way to break the shield. I think Arlecchino can break the shield with her charge attacks, Klee is obviously great, and Yoimiya actually might be pretty good here. There's also some funky shenanigans like standing on Albedo's flower to hit the boss in the air, or vacuuming it down with Jean, but the easiest strategy is definitely to bring Jean and Amber and cheese the whole fight. You can see here that I kinda messed up the second vacuum. I caught the C0R0 too early before he could take the first instance of fall damage, so I had to finish off the boss with my very poorly built Amber. I think she wasn't 4-piece exiled or something, so Official was pretty much doing all the job. Wait, why is my sucrose on full flown youth? Oh lord. Anyway, it doesn't matter, we just do a few more attacks with Sucrose and Official and finish off the fight. The second boss is the Field Generator, and this one is very interesting. I decided to bring a 4-star only gaming team here, but obviously if you have Shanyun instead of Sucrose or Citlalling instead of Rosaria, it would be significantly better. Now, the choice of bringing 2 attack buffers when the boss already gives you 600% attack for the plunges might look a bit weird, but the problem I ran into with Sucrose is that it forced me into a rotation that gives very short uptime on her buffs, so I ended up preferring the Bennett Iansan variant. But if your Iansan is not C6, you're probably better off bringing another type of buff, like Sucrose or Shilonen, or maybe even another Cryo to try to add some regular plunges in between the skills. Anyway, the clear itself is pretty standard, just a good old gaming team, so let's talk about alternatives. Firstly, obviously, all the plunge characters will be good, Varessa will be amazing, Xiao will be pretty good, and maybe even Shanyun. I kinda wanna try DPS Shanyun here, I think it could be interesting. But other than those, there's a bunch more characters that can benefit from the mechanics. If you jump and use her skill right as you land, you can snapshot the massive attack buff on Fischl, which makes her deal some serious damage. You can also do the same thing on Flint. If you jump just after his midi burst, you will get the massive attack buff on the big hit, making him very strong here. You can't do it on Xiangling unfortunately, since she snapshots at the end of her burst animation, so the attack buff will be gone. You can incorporate some plunge attacks with a bunch of DPSs to take advantage of the short attack buff, like Arlecchino can do a plunge into 2 normals, Skirk can do the same, Mawika can do a plunge into the quick animation cancel thing, Hu Tao can probably do some funky shenanigans too, Kinich can jump before short holding his skill, and so on. Do keep in mind that the boss has high geo resistances, so unfortunately Navia plunge won't be that good. Also, do keep in mind that it deals a lot of damage that is not always avoidable, so you do need at least some form of defensive utility in your team. And for the last boss, we have the return of the infamous Iniquitous Baptist. I actually don't even know what Iniquitous means. Anyway, this boss is by far the most annoying. In order to destroy his shields, you really want Hydro and either Dendro or Cryo, so the strongest teams here will be Nefer teams and Freeze teams with Skirk or Escoffier. You can also brute force the fight if you have a strong Overload team, like Mawika Overload for example. And apart from that, you also have a bunch of Hyperbloom variants. The one I'm using here is just good old Lauma Hyperbloom. I decided to put Kirara instead of Collei here because she can front-load a lot of Dendro application with her burst, which is pretty useful when dealing with the Electro and Hydro shields. But you can also use Nahida or Yelan instead, and the team will probably be better. Since the boss always does the shields in the same order, Electro first, then Pyro, and then Hydro, we have just enough time to get our burst back on Kirara and use it on both the Electro shield and the Hydro shield, which is pretty nice. Then the boss gets back up and we immediately use Kirara's burst to deal with it, and here if we time Xingqiu's skill just before the Pyro shield appears, we can trigger Sacrificial Sword and almost instantly deal 2/3 of the shield, and breaking the shield fast here is a pretty big deal. Something to keep in mind though is that half of the damage you deal through the shield is recorded and dealt to the boss after the shield breaks. So if you can deal some damage while still applying the required elements, it's always nice to do so. Anyway, other than this team, I've seen a clear with Novelette Hyperbloom, and I also did another clear with Mawika, Fischl, Shivers, Auroron. It's probably not the most optimal overload team, but it's Mawika, so anything works, especially with the new combos. By the way, if you want to learn the new combos, I made a guide on that. I think I also saw an Alhaitham Quickboom clear without Lauma, but I'm not sure if they had any form of vertical investments, so I can't really guarantee that it'll work. So yeah, Nefer teams are good, Freeze teams are good, Strong Overload can brute force it, and apart from that, it's pretty much just Hyperbloom variants. Anyway, that was it for the video. You can see my builds in the background here. I might try to do a Dire clear this time. I think it's possible at C0R0, but I'm just concerned about the Baptist. That's the only one I'm not sure about, but we will see. Anyway, I hope this video helped you. I wish you a good luck on your Stygian clears, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!